Yo, hello and welcome to Stu Know Who. So, a couple of days ago, the government unveiled plans to roll out its first ever men's health strategy in this country. Now, for those of you who've watched my content before, you'll know that men's health, specifically men's mental health, is something I have touched on before, and it's something that is very close to my heart. So I wanted to do an episode tonight just to discuss my thoughts about it, actually take a bit of a deep dive into what has been said, give my views and opinions on it for what it's worth, but also to highlight ways that I believe men have been let down, severely let down, in my opinion, for a number of years. And not only that, men are an easy target and have been, at least from my opinion, my experience, villainized. So that is what tonight's episode about. This is not to have a dig at anyone. This is such an important subject matter to me. You know, it's very close to my heart from someone who has experienced very severe mental health issues in the past. To actually see it addressed in a positive light and hopefully something being done, I can only commend it. But words are cheap, as I'm talking words. But that's what tonight's episode's about. So if you're new around here, then please subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video. Also available on Spotify, and like the damn video. So all that said, let's get into tonight's episode. So to pull up what has been announced, there is a press release which is on the gov.uk website titled "Government Unveils England's First Ever Men's Health Strategy." So off the bat, fantastic. I mean, the fact that it's the first ever one, that's quite embarrassing, really. And this is not a dig at the current government at all, because at least they've done something, whereas the previous guys, nothing. However, as we'll see later in this episode, steps could have been taken previous. So the government launches a bold plan to tackle physical and mental health challenges faced by men and boys and reduce inequalities. And this is from the Department of Health and Social Care and the Right Honourable Wes Streeting, MP. So again, off the bat, fantastic. And if we can, as we'll see in this episode, there are definitely issues and things that affect men and boys more than females. This is not about we're more important, we need stuff they don't. This is a clear issue, and one that it's only a positive thing that they are looking to do something about it. So the landmark strategy published on International Men's Day aims to tackle men's mental health challenges, improve physical health, and reduce inequalities so men and boys get on and live longer, healthier lives. As part of the strategy, the Department of Health and Social Care will team up with the Premier League's Together Against Suicide initiative and smash the stigma around mental health. The Premier League has done a lot of fantastic work, and as I'm through some volunteering work I do, I am involved in a mental health charity. I'm not going to say which one because this video is not affiliated with them, but I do notice when the Premier League's done this stuff, and straight off the bat, blokes don't talk, and usually the guys who don't talk tend to be the guys who will go and watch the football or the rugby or the boxing and use that as an escape from what they're going through. So when you have the Premier League, which football is the biggest sport in the world, and the Premier League is the biggest league in football. So they are doing incredible work and shining a real light on the issue that's there. So men with prostate cancer will also benefit from improved care through the strategy, alongside 3.6 million investment in suicide prevention projects targeting middle-aged men. Now, what I will say with the prostate cancer, I believe, I might be wrong, it's the second biggest killer of men, I think. Or maybe it's the biggest of all men. It's high up there, I know that. Suicide is the biggest killer of men under 50, but maybe once you go across all age groups, maybe it is prostate cancer. I heard today that the NHS have ruled out blanket screening of men of a certain age, which, apologies for the French, I thought was fucking disgusting, if I'm being honest. And I think it, to me, maybe I've got a chip on my shoulder, but it just seems like another indication that men matter less. That's how it felt anyway. So to continue with their press release, men and boys across England will benefit from tailored healthcare and support as the government launches its first mental health strategy. Launched on International Men's Day, the bold plans set out comprehensive action to tackle the physical and mental health challenges men and boys face every day. So to sort of dig beneath the surface a little bit, men can be less likely to seek help and more likely to suffer in silence. I can attest to this. This combined with higher propensity to smoke, drink, gamble and use drugs means men's health is suffering, having a significant impact on families, which include females too. Now, on a previous episode, I have stated that I have suffered with very severe depression, which led me to nearly taking my own life. I have lost a friend of mine to suicide. And the thing we had in common is we had family members in our lives who are affected by that. That are female. So this is, although it's a men's health strategy, this is not just because it only affects men. It does not. It affects everyone around a man who is struggling, who is suffering, who is not his self. And if that person then takes their life, the knock-on effect, it destroys lives. It genuinely destroys lives. So the fact that, as we'll see as I bring up more stats and things, that this is such a huge issue, it's very easy to read the headlines of "a man has taken his life." What is easily forgotten, I find, is that man's mother, children, wife, whatever it may be, friends. It's not just the tragedy of one person taking their life. That tragedy is repeated amongst so many different people. So if we can reduce those numbers, if we can get help to people, that can only be a good thing, clearly. So to continue with the press release, suicide is one of the biggest killers of men under 50. I believe it is the biggest killer of men under 50. And 3/4 of all suicides are men. So 3 in 4. Now, the numbers are one man in the UK every single 2 hours. 2 hours, one man will take their own life. And as I've just stated, it's not just that one person, it is the people around that person who have that impact with them for the rest of their lives. It is life shattering for so many people who are affected by it. is a huge issue. So that is why the government is investing 3.6 million over the next 3 years in suicide prevention projects for middle-aged men in local communities across areas of England where men are most at risk of taking their own lives, including some of the most deprived areas in the country. This comes on top of expanding mental health teams in schools to ensure an additional 900,000 pupils have access to support by April 2026. Now, I speak with a lot of guys who carry trauma with them from childhood. So again, that is only a positive thing, and credit where it's due. The project will break down barriers that middle-aged men face in seeking support, such as the stigma associated with seeking help and a lack of awareness of what is available and how to access it. Projects will be co-designed with experts and men with lived experience of mental health crisis and suicidal thoughts. The focus on suicide prevention includes a partnership on the Premier League's Together Against Suicide initiative with the Samaritans, which looks to help tackle the stigma around men's mental health and embed health messaging into the matchday experience. Apologies, cannot shake this bloody cough. So, just quickly to go through what West Streeton said. I'm not going to read the whole lot because it is a long article, but I think it's important to give the highlights of it just so we can see what I'm talking about and why genuinely I think this is a good thing. So West Streeton said, for too long, men's health has been overlooked. Yes, it has. There's been a reluctance to accept that men suffer specific inequalities and hardships. Yes, they do. The fact that life can be really difficult for men in today's society. Men are dying nearly 4 years earlier than women, and suicide remains one of the leading causes of death for men under 50. And I believe he's wrong. I believe it is the biggest cause of death for men under 50. The biggest. One man every single 2 hours. 12 guys every single day. So this strategy marks a turning point, the first time we're taking comprehensive, coordinated action to address the health challenges facing men and boys. Teaming up with the Premier League will harness the power of football to break down barriers and reach millions of men who might never walk through a GP's door. We know men are less likely to come forward for healthcare. Yes, we are. From partnering with the Premier League to rolling out health support in the workplace, we're meeting men where they are and giving them the support they need to live longer, healthier lives. So as a statement, the only thing I'll disagree with was that one of the leading deaths, no, it is the leading cause of death for men under 50. And I think it's important to highlight that it is the leading cause of death of men under 50. And that is, do not underestimate the importance of words when it comes to something like that. And one of, or the, is perhaps he misspoke. But it's a huge issue. It is an absolute huge issue. Now, I was one of those atypical blokes who was going through a lot of stuff. I've lived a life, you know what I mean? And a lot of it good, to be fair. And a lot of it, or a large proportion of it, perhaps not the best. I've had my own mental anguishes, my own issues with severe depression that led me to being within seconds, really, of taking my life. And I do have a future episode planned where I'm going to be selfish and talk about myself. But the plan of that is just to be blatantly and bluntly honest, just to highlight how you can think you know someone, but you don't know. Because guys do tend to hide it well. I didn't know where to go for help. Although I was suffering with depression, I still did not really know what depression was. I was living it, but I still didn't understand it. So the more we can highlight these issues using a platform such as football that is going to hit so many people, that is a good thing. I am someone who, I'm a boxing fan. After football, boxing is my favourite sport. We know tragically what happened with, for those who know boxing, Ricky the Hitman Hatton not that long ago. And that was heartbreaking for me because he was my favourite boxer as I was growing up. I recently done a charity boxing match, not because I fancied a career change and thought I would look at getting into boxing. I did it because I knew that there would be people in the crowd who would see two guys throwing hands at each other to try and encourage people to come and talk about their issues. And I had a lot of conversations afterwards with people, and that's why we did it. That is why I think it's great that the government are working alongside the Premier League to get eyes on the subject matter and try and encourage people to come forward and talk. So, again, credit where credit is due. It's long overdue, sadly, that this topic has been dealt with at a parliamentary level where we actually realise it is a crisis, because it is. 12 guys every single day, that is, if that's not a crisis, I don't know what is. As a man under 50, the most likely way I'm going to die is by my own hands. And that goes for every man across the UK who's under 50 years old. It should not have taken this long to get to this point. It should have been addressed sooner. And one can hope that it's successful, and it's successful in spreading the awareness, spreading the message, and most importantly, it's successful in bringing those numbers of young men down who are taking their own life because they don't know where to seek help. They don't know what help is out there. So any awareness, I'm all for it. Fantastic. So I found a survey, or should I say the results of a survey, which I thought was quite powerful. I want to bring up, and this kind of speaks on how men of all ages are feeling regarding their mental health, also the representation of men today. Something I am going to touch on later in this episode, but it is, no one needs to shed a tear for me, and they don't. But it is increasingly difficult to be a man today, where you seem to be, feels like you are blamed for all the ills of the world. And if someone does something and they are a man, it's easy to say men are, rather than that man is. And I don't think that would fly if we did it the other way. A woman does something, therefore women are. No, that woman is. But it seems to be a bit of it's a bit uneven. That's how it feels. So the survey was conducted by, and apologies, I've never heard of them, but Red Sea Research, so REDC Research. Masculinity in today's world. So this was their key findings from, they're calling the survey their monitor number 2, and this was from February this year, 2025. So, against the backdrop of a shifting political and social landscape, we wanted to revisit our 2023 investigation of what masculinity means in today's world. So it says the results are broadly in line with what they've done in 2023. However, this phase reveals some interesting difference, particularly between age groups. So the methodology, it was an online survey. Questionnaire included 10 statements and 3 open-ended questions for richer depth of results. So it doesn't say what the questions were, but that is how they come to the results that they've got. So the key takeouts from this survey were: young men find it confusing. They find it a confusing time to be a man as they struggle with social media, societal pressures, and a strong friction between modern and traditional representations of masculinity. We've continued to find a gap in feeling represented on screen amongst men, particularly older ages. There's appetite for more authentic representation. Most men believe that social media is damaging society's perception of men. Younger men in particular struggle to talk about their feelings and are more likely to struggle with mental health. Finding a partner is perceived as difficult for young single men who struggle to navigate an increasingly complex dating scene. You cannot even say hello to a lady without being me too'd, and that's how it feels sometimes. And for older men, a lack of close connections with friends and a lack of positive role models is a standout finding. So this was in line with the first one they done, that around a third of men find it confusing to be a man. It's difficult. It is difficult sometimes. So one of the statements that was made by one of the participants: some of the beliefs I have of what a man is are not acceptable anymore. There is a juxtaposition between being strong and manly, but also soft and emotional. So friction between old and new models of masculinity drives confusion. So we have responses from a wide range of ages here. So this is from a 20-year-old. What it means to be a man is rapidly changing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's definitely different. And a big change can be confusing. Next one, 27-year-old man. There are many negative role models in art and on social media, and it's difficult to seek out the positive role models. Men with a personality or appearance which doesn't conform with other people's ideals often get criticised and excluded. Jump to a 37-year-old man. Men are now expected to be fully part of the family and contribute equally to raising a family, yet are still expected to be the breadwinner, whereas decades ago men were only expected to be the breadwinner. 53-year-old man. There is a feeling that men are responsible for patriarchy, and you feel a sense of guilt. Although things were this way before I was born, and in spite of personal effort for equality or equanimity. And jump to a 78-year-old man. Patterns of behaviour and what is expected of you are constantly changing. What was considered polite in my era is now considered condescending or non-PC, like holding a door open. I still hold a door open whether you're a man or a woman. I don't care, it's just polite. And if someone has a go at me for it, I'll show them how impolite I can be while I tell them to try shoving the head up their ass. Try me. You know what I mean? I don't... Manners are manners. You know? Only half of men think being a man is something to be proud of, which is a scary thought. You know, how can you do yourself down just because you're a man? The finger strongly points at social media. Almost 6 in 10 men believe that social media is damaging society's perceptions of men. Social media amplifies negative and unrealistic expectations. So again, to read some more statements, again from a varied age group. So from a 20-year-old, there are a lot of negative stories of how men have treated women, which makes people assume all men are the same, which is not the case here. That's what I was saying. A man, not all men. 25-year-old man says social media is damaging to men's mental health as society have an expectation of what a man should be. This puts pressure on men to live up to this expectation. 48-year-old man, it creates false perceptions of what males should be. It can encourage negative reactions to society. And a 56-year-old man said social media is ruining perceptions of everything, pushing people to act in ways that they probably wouldn't do if social media was not around. Older men feel particularly underrepresented on the screen, which is 21% of men agree with that. So that is some of the results of the survey they done, and I suppose the main takeaway of that is men just want to be men. You know, it's not even about wanting to be a man. A man wants to be himself. A man wants to go to work, do his job, earn his money, take care of his family, go down the pub, maybe have a bet on the horses, beer at the weekend, and just go on with his life and try and do the best that he can. The best that he can by himself, the best that he can by his family, by his friends, and just be a normal guy who just gets on with his life. We all have flaws. We all have aspects of our personalities, aspects of our physical selves that we wish we could change. For everything to be hyper, like attention drawn to it all the time, and to have that focus on you permanently where you have to act a certain way and you can't hold the door open for someone, or you can't swear, or you can't be attracted to someone and say hello in case you get me too'd, or a joke that's maybe a bit risky but you mean nothing by it. It's just lads being lads, or whatever it may be. You can't do that no more. I feel like this, and I know from speaking to a lot of blokes, because I've got a lot of mates, and also the volunteering work that I do, I come across a lot of guys. I have a lot of conversations with blokes. We feel like we're constantly on eggshells. We are second guessing ourselves, second guessing what we can do, second guessing what we can say. Everything seems to be, we all have to live this polished version of ourselves so that we don't get into trouble, so that we conform with the way we are supposed to be now. Now, myself personally, I'm one of those kind of guys who I used to be like that. I used to worry about saying what I think. And then I realised something, and that is, am I a misogynist? No. I have a wife that I love to pieces, who loves me to pieces, and 3 daughters that are my world. And I would do anything for the 4 of them. My wife, my 3 girls. So, am I a misogynist? No. Am I homophobic? I've got mates who are homosexual, and I don't care. I don't care one way or the other. I don't say that's so-and-so, he's gay. I say that's so-and-so, he's my mate. Same goes with the race issue. I've got mates who are different races. I don't care. I don't care what race you are. I judge you on who you are, so I know I'm not a racist. So therefore, I don't give a toss. I'm going to say what I think because I know I am a decent person. I know I'm rough around the edges, but I know I got a good heart. I think once you release those shackles, it definitely becomes easier. When you stop, there's something very empowering about the ability to not give a fuck, you know. And it took me a while to get there, but honestly, once you get to that point, life does become easier. Someone once told me it's only a bollocking if you listen. We should stop listening. It is though. It's constantly eggshells. Before, it's almost as though there doesn't need to be a filter or anything like that on social media now, because the cancel culture and everything like that, and just went that insane that people are applying their own filter to themselves, which means we are not getting authentic people anymore because people are scared to be authentic. And then you see people who go to the other extreme. I believe there are people out there that will say things for shock content, and people are like, at least somebody's saying something. And young men especially will then gravitate to those people, and you're like, no, see, this is what happens when you stop normal conversations. You have extremes. And that's where trying to censor stuff has led us to, extremes from one end to the other. And it's a difficult time. And honestly, I grew up with the internet. The internet has always been a thing for me. I envy people who existed before the internet. And I'm fully aware that I say that as I'm doing a video that is going to be uploaded via the internet to a social media platform. That makes me a bit of a fucking hypocrite. I know that. But I do envy these people who lived their life before everything was online, everything was hyper-focused upon, everything was hyper-polarized, everyone's got different opinions, and when you could just go down the pub, have a beer, have a chat, go home, spend time with the family, then go to work the next day. Life seems so much simpler then. I know the internet is can be a tool for good, but it's also rotting a lot of people's brains and is affecting people's mental health in such a scary manner that we need to be honest and say, look, I don't like regulation. I don't. When it comes to speech and stuff, I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm a free speech absolutist, but I'm a free speech advocate. I'll put it that way. And if someone's got a bad opinion, I'd rather hear that bad opinion so I know not to waste my time talking to that person. Stopping them saying it isn't going to stop those opinions being there, but you don't know, you know what I'm saying? We live in a strange time. And it is, to go back to men again, I think men are the easy target. We live in a patriarchy. It's constantly being told that, and men did this and men did that, and men. I would not be married to my wife if she spoke like that. I'd be like, you're going to blame me for what some other dude done? No. It's an ever evolving world, an ever evolving landscape, and I think obviously in the past women couldn't vote and things like that, and getting equal rights and everything. I'm 100% on board with. But I think there is part of it that it's gone so far it's gone from equal rights to Men had it for so long, let's do them down now. And that it feels that way. It does feel that way. Now, to go back to men taking their own life again, which feeds into what I was saying here. I have an article, and this was from a couple of months ago. It was actually on World Suicide Prevention Day, which was the 10th of September. So it's a bit of a dated article, but it's an article I've read before, and there's some very good stats that I want to bring up here. So it's World Suicide Prevention Day today. No, it's not, but it was when it was written. So for so many families, the worst part of the year, but one that is vital with such a national crisis for men and women. Here are 10 facts with respect to male suicide in the UK. More men under 50 die by suicide than any other reason. Says it is 14 men every day by suicide. 74% of suicides are men. 3 times as many men die by suicide than a vehicle accident. The suicide rate in 2023 in England is the highest this century. Over 90,000 men by 2023 in England and Wales have died by suicide this century. So that's in 23 years, which is enough to fill Wembley Stadium. Scotland has the highest suicide rate and England the lowest. North East England's male suicide rate is twice as high than in London, and maybe that is why nothing has been done on a parliamentary level, because they're based in London and maybe they don't see the issues that are in the greater country. In England and Wales, whilst men aged 45 to 49 have the highest suicide rates, sadly, 149 male teenagers aged 15 to 19 died by suicide too, which was the 3rd highest rate this century for that age group. That is scary to look at those stats there. And that really highlights why it's such a major issue. Now, one thing I did mention then, parliamentary-wise, why is it taking so long? And to see the North East has twice as many suicides as London. London is twice the rate, not twice as many people, because obviously there's more people live in London. But London, a lot of politics from someone who lives outside of London, it does feel like so much of politics is centred on London. It is our capital city, it is our financial capital in this country. I know that. England does exist outside of London. It does. I think for a lot of politicians, especially the ones in Westminster, they forget that. I live in the southwest, which means beautiful beaches, beautiful moors, very little opportunity, a lack of infrastructure, and poverty. Poverty and wealth on each other's doorstep. And the local MPs, I know they probably do some great work, and I've seen, I know a couple of local MPs personally who are genuinely decent people. But once they get to Westminster, it's all about Westminster or places elsewhere around the world, rather than your little 25,000 population town in South Devon. And we're easily forgotten. I think it's, honestly, if this men's health strategy that West Streeting and the government are trying to roll out, I wish them the greatest of luck. I just hope that they realise mental health can affect anyone at any time, but England is bigger than London. It is. And the fact that it can affect anyone at any time means that this strategy needs to work from the northeast to the southwest, to the southeast to the northwest, and everywhere in between. Because it needs to be nationwide, and it cannot be focused or centred on London. No matter how much you try and focus and centre everything else on London. This is a nationwide issue that needs to be addressed nationwide. But the fact that they are trying to do this again, I wish them all luck. I wish it had been rolled out sooner. Now, with that in mind, I have a video to bring up, and this is a video of a very prominent Labour MP. Okay, now I seem to remember when this first came out, this video, she got a lot of abuse for it, and abhorrent abuse. I'm not bringing this video up because I want any abuse going in her direction. I am pulling this video up to highlight why it's perhaps taken this long for it to be addressed. Men's health to be addressed. The kind of the way that it's sort of a dirty subject to talk about, that men need help. A stigma surrounding it. So this video is from Jess Phillips, who I believe is a women's health minister. I might be wrong. It's something like that. And this was a bit of a back and forth in one of the rooms at Parliament, and I will shut up and play this video. Is 2.5 minutes long, but what I want is I want you to listen to, I think it was Philip Hammond, Conservative MP, who brought up the topic, the idea of men's health, and I wanted to hear the reaction, and the reaction, it was disgusting. And this isn't a pop at Jess Phillips. I believe this was probably a reaction that 95% of people would have had back then as well. So this is not a pop at her. I'm just hoping that this highlights why it's taken so long, and hopefully there has been a serious direction change in a lot of people's thoughts and feelings regarding this subject matter. So let's go big. Load in. Come on. Let's try coming out of that. Bear with me a second. I had it all loaded up perfectly. Let's try refreshing the page. Right. Second time lucky, hopefully.
Go get the cheese board, would you?
After this 30-second advert.
Pickles, Kelly Brook. Kelly?
All right, Dave. Listen, you've been working really hard for everyone else today.
I have, haven't I?
Go on. It's time to treat yourself. With your rewards every week from Betway, there's something for everyone.
It pays to be part of the team. Stay loyal, get rewarded.
Your rewards
Right.
every week from Betway.
Hurry up, it's starting.
Apologies for the advert. Here we go.
Because, of course, not only do we have International Women's Day, we also have women and equality questions every month in the Chamber, which we don't have for men. So the opportunity for men to raise issues that are important to them is very limited. And just to give you a flavour, Mr. Chairman, of the type of things that may come up and which will be part of International Men's Day. I'm not entirely sure why it's so humorous, but to discuss issues such as...
You have to excuse me for laughing, that the idea that men don't have the opportunity to ask questions in this place is a frankly laughable thing. As I say, as the only woman on this committee, it seems like every day to me is...
Well, I wasn't making, with respect, I wasn't making that point. I wasn't making the point that men don't have an opportunity to ask. I was about men's issues. There's a very big difference between men raising issues and the raising of men's issues.
But one could raise men's issues in any single one of the question sessions. So your men's health, absolutely. So prostate cancer, that could be raised in men's questions, couldn't it?
Well,
that could be raised in health questions.
Mr. Chairman, I very much look forward to these arguments being deployed when we come to consider a debate on International Women's Day, because exactly the same arguments could be raised for International Women's Day, that women's health issues, that equality issues could be raised in women and equality questions in other forms. So all I ask is for an equal crack of the whip, that if those issues can be raised without having a debate on International Men's Day, then obviously the same issues can apply for when it comes to International Women's Day, but those arguments have never won the day before this committee.
I just think that it's worth pointing out the idea that this chamber, that these houses, both of them, in any way reflect gender equality is to me a frankly laughable thing. And so in the fight for equality, I'm not sure the men on this list necessarily have that much to fight for. I don't care about men's issues, it's that I'm hoping for parity myself.
Hear, hear.
I absolutely care about men's issues. And when I've got parity, and when women in these buildings have parity, you can have your debate.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, if I can just make the point,
and that will take an awfully long time.
I'm not requesting a debate on representation within the House of Commons. I'm asking for debates on men's issues, and the list of issues I gave earlier, I would like to think people can recognise are genuine issues and actually are very, very rarely debated in the House of Commons.
So that reaction was... I think that reaction spoke volumes to me. And again, it's not Papa Jess Phillips. I believe I called him Philip Hammond as well, just to address that. Philip Davies, MP, who brought it up. This is not a Papa Jess Phillips. I think that reaction that was brought out by that question, like with the answer and everything like that, I'm sure when the government unveiled that there's this new men's health strategy, I'm sure there are so many people who would have had a very similar reaction to that, either internally or to people they know. Men get everything, why do they need this? It's just to state it again, as a man under 50, the biggest threat to myself is me. And that goes for every single man under 50 in this country. Now, if we had, say, if 14 men were dying every single day in car crashes, there would be I believe, a national campaign, a national safety campaign about how it's such an issue that men are dying in car crashes. There would be changes in speed limits and driving tests and all sorts of things, and there would be a non-stop campaign. But they're not. As I read earlier, 3 times as many men die by suicide than they do in car accidents. Yeah, we see a car accident and we think, I hope everyone's alright. You hear someone dies in a car accident and it's tragic. It's news. A car accident will make the local news. You'll see that. It won't be some little tucked away article down at the bottom or just a write-up on an obituary page. It would be a big article that there was a a tragic car crash, somebody lost their life, and it was awful. Yet, 3 times as many men in this country die by suicide. To put that into context, like, those two things do not add up. It is a clear issue that should be addressed. It's a clear issue that needs addressing. And to be honest, it's a bit of a scandal that it's taken to 2025 when 3/4 of suicides in the UK have been men for the last 2 decades. I think it goes back to the 90s where it's been consistently, and it might even go back further than that, consistently 3/4 of suicides are men. There's clearly an issue there, clearly one that should be addressed. 14 men every single day. So it's more, that's one man in, well, more than one man every 2 hours. That's bloody scary. These are dads, brothers, sons, cousins, friends, boyfriends, whoever it might be. You know, these are people who their passing has an effect on so many different people around them. And for nothing to be seemingly done for this long, to be honest, is a bit of a bloody outrage. It is, and we should be, as a country, we should be pretty ashamed by that. The fact that many people are finding life that difficult and finding the help they need even more difficult to come across, that suicide becomes their go-to. That is, for a first world country, we are constantly told that we have the greatest health service in the world. There is a glaring hole in that health service when so many people, so many men are taking their own life. Now, I know men are less likely to seek help, and it is about openness and awareness and encouragement and letting guys know that there are places to go and it's okay to not be okay. But this should be a national campaign. It should be a national campaign because it's a national. It's just, I'm actually kind of lost for words just how bad this crisis is, and to hear people saying, why do we need to talk about men's health? Well, this is why. This isn't about men or women. This is a clear medical issue, a medical catastrophe where so many young men are taking their own life. But for men, it feels like we are under attack. It does. And you even mention men now. I guarantee, like, if an article was to come out about men's suicide, the phrase toxic masculinity would come up in that. And just to prove that point, right, I went on to the BBC, which is our national broadcaster, our national news, one that we are forced to pay a tax on in our TV license. And I searched toxic masculinity just to prove a point. Now I will scroll down and show you all the articles on this page that are all about toxic masculinity. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Oh, there's a lot there. And then page 2, and then page 3, and then page 4. And I don't know how far it goes. And to be honest, I'm not going to go through it just to see how many there is. I'm just highlighting the point that you cannot escape the fact that just talking about being a man or a masculine trait somehow now is toxic. I hate that phrase, toxic masculinity. Hate it. Do you know what we used to call it? Being an arsehole. And it didn't matter whether it was a man being an arsehole or a woman being an arsehole. We didn't have to call it something like toxic masculinity. I didn't grow up and a mate of mine was being a bit of a dick. And I went, oi, that's toxic masculinity, mate. Pack it in. No, I say, dude, you've been an arsehole. Pack it in. I'll get you a clip round the ear. Toxic masculinity, by using that phrase, as soon as you mention the word masculinity, the first word that comes into your head after that is toxic. Which in itself is fucking toxic. There's nothing wrong with being a man. To go back to the survey that I pulled up earlier when, what was it, half of men don't feel proud to be a man. How can you, when every time you try to be a man, you're labelled as toxic or misogynistic, or I'll go to Keir Starmer, my favourite, far right. You know, all this crap. And I'm like, I'm just trying to live my life the best I can, man. And yet, I'm being labelled all sorts. And for what? That's the kind of mad world we live in now, where what you would call traditional masculine roles are now labelled as toxic. Now, I want to bring up an article. Last article of the day, just before I wrap it up, just to touch on what I just said there. So, 12 reasons why traditional masculinity is anything but toxic. So it says, don't mistake traditional masculinity for toxic masculinity. So let's go down to 12 and see what it says. So being strong and capable doesn't mean you're going to be hostile. You need to be strong in life. The desire to protect others is incredibly noble and often self-sacrificing, not toxic. The ability to be competitive in a healthy, controlled manner leads to immense personal growth. And surely personal growth is something we all want. Bravery is a virtue. Morals and ethics are the cornerstone of decency and right action. Being adamant and disciplined about standards isn't mean, it's often necessary. And as a country, we are severely lacking in our standards at the minute. Delegating tasks to others isn't a weakness. Leaning into and learning from suffering and hardship. We go through hard times. Hard times make strong men. Doesn't mean you have to bottle it up. You know, you have to learn where you can get help when you need it and to come back from it. Number 9, learning how to compartmentalize emotions to get things done can be immensely beneficial. Chivalry allows people to be gracious and polite, yet still have the capability to bite when necessary. 11, self-discipline affects every aspect of a person's existence. And number 12, confrontation isn't always negative. It's often needed and necessarily. To go back to, if I had a mate who was being an arsehole, you got to be confrontational and say, dude, you're being an arsehole. That actually helps them, potentially, if they're open to hearing it and realise the wrongs of their way. And do you know what? If I'm being an arsehole too, sometimes I need to be told that. It feels at the moment that the UK, not only the UK, the wider world has a real serious issue with men. Not everyone, I know that. But we seem to be an easy target. A walking target, you know. We have that target on our heads all the time because we dare to be born with a penis. Oh, I said penis. Sorry, that's bloke's humour. Didn't mean to be toxic. We dare to be born with a penis, therefore we have a target on our back. And that's crap. As men, we know right from wrong. And 99% of blokes I meet are just genuine, solid, decent people. We all have flaws. Man or woman, we all have flaws. If you're striving to be the best person you can be, and every day you try and be better than yesterday, then you're doing the right thing. And if you're going through hell right now and think that somehow it's weak to get help, actually it takes real strength to go and do that. So I cannot recommend enough. Find that help for yourself, reach out and talk. And I suppose don't be embarrassed about being a man. Don't be embarrassed about being yourself. Make sure you do be yourself. Better yourself by all means, but be you. Stay true to you. Support the people around you. And as men, I'm not going to do Gillette advert and say, oh, men are awful and we should be better. No. Blokes are fucking awesome. And arseholes at the same time. Just like women. Just like all people. All we got to do is try and enjoy our lives and be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And while we're on this mortal coil, try and get some enjoyment. Help others where you can. That's my thought on it anyway. I hope this new mental health initiative goes well. I hope it has a positive impact. And I hope West Streeting, I hope it goes well for him. Because if it does, then it means it's going well for men. And men's mental health and physical health. And as a man, they're quite important to me. As a husband, they're quite important to my wife as well. So, thank you so much for watching. A bit of a, I don't know if I call that a rant, but it's definitely something I'm passionate about. So, if you enjoyed the video, then please like the damn video. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, share. You can follow me on X. Also available on Spotify, all at Stu Know Who. And until next time, I will see you later. Peace.